Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up the Custodes Blade Wizard, or Champion, Blade Champion, that one. And so our assembly is pretty straightforward. We're going to prime the models with a Bright Touch Gray Car Primer, and the head, the shoulder pads, the cape, and the arms with the swords will be separate from the body for ease of painting. Alright now, with Mournfang Brown, Pallid Witch Flesh, White Scar White, Lamian Medium, just in case, Corvus Black, Cabalite Green, and Xerxes Purple, we're going to do a ton of the undercoating and stuff. So, with Mournfang Brown, we're going to use an airbrush and undercoat the bottom 45 degrees of all the parts. Although most of this is absolutely redundant, looking back, this coating is only for really the face and the boots and stuff, gloves, and his pants. That's it. The armor is going to be completely unaffected by the undercoating, mostly. And then we're going to use Pallid Witch Flesh and airbrush from above on these parts. And everything else, I mean, I didn't know at the time, but I'm going to tell you now that this was irrelevant because of certain paints I used. And then I used White Scar White to dry brush all these important pieces. And then I used it also to paint straight white lines on some of the most important areas of the face, like his eyebrows, the corners of his skull, his nose, and like these really big frown spots, I don't know what they're called, on his face, to accentuate them much more, sort of to the point that it's too extreme, but it actually works well. And then with Corvus Black, I'm also going to airbrush the base, the 3D printed base, and I will also do the same thing with the Cabalite Green and Xerxes Purple, just brushing painting lines on there. Alright, now with Doombull Brown, Mephiston Red, Evil Sun Scarlet, and Trollslayer Orange, we're going to paint the cape and his front cloak thingy. So luckily this time the cape is a separate part, so we're going to use the airbrush because it's easy. So we're going to use Doombull Brown to paint the inside of his mini skirt thingy and the rest of the cloak. And then with the airbrush we will apply Mephiston Red at angles, highlights, and stuff to pick out the majority of the body. And then we'll use Evil Sun Scarlet aimed at the right angles, just hit the most raised and most prominent areas. And as far as the cape goes, we're going to place Mephiston Red covering about 90 to 95% of the skirt. Then with Lamian Medium mixed in with Evil Sun Scarlet, we're going to cover around half of that with the Lamian Medium and Evil Sun Scarlet. And apply a few coats of it, because if it's around 1-to-1, you can apply a few and there'll be a nice color transition. And then finally with Trollslayer Orange mixed with Lamian Medium, pretty thinly, like 1-to-1, we apply it to the edges of the cape, the most prominent and raised areas. And we will basically, because it's so thinned down, we can apply probably 2 to 3 coats at most, and each additional coat is at the most raised area. And on the skirt, it'll be on the edges, most raised areas, and the front parts of the skirt. Alright, so I somewhat refined the process of making the marble down. So this is a small piece of a baby wipe, a very small piece, probably like a tenth of a baby wipe that I have constantly been pulling in every direction and slowly pulling out the fibers and stuff. And then I tape it across when I think it's good enough, and then I prepare it for some final airbrushing. And now with Dawnstone and Grayseer, we're going to airbrush these colors onto the base. We're going to apply Dawnstone all over, letting it soak into the fibers and getting through. Then we're going to apply a few thin stripes with the airbrush, focused concentrated places of Grayseer onto it. And then we do the final removal. And my goodness, it's so uneven. Doggone it. Well, that sucked. So we're just gonna live with it. So with Xerxes Purple, Cabalite Green, and Vallejo Liquid Gold, which is an alcohol-based paint, we have to use alcohol to dilute it, we're going to add some more color in. So wherever there's purple, we're going to add a little bit more of the Xerxes Purple in to add to make the color stronger. The Cabalite Green, we're going to add in places where there's green to make the green stronger. And then with the Vallejo Gold, we're just going to add tiny little flecks here and there. And now with Liquitex Gloss Varnish, we're just going to apply 2 coats of this onto the base. That's it. And now with Matte Varnish, Corvus Black, and Lamian Medium, we're going to mix it together to create a little wash and apply it to the black parts of the boots, and the pants. I applied it to the pants and I forgot about the boots, but I added it later. And now with the exact same mix except with Doom Bull Brown, which I apply it to the gloves and the boots essentially, but the matte varnish probably wasn't needed. It lightened the color of Doom Bull Brown to make it kind of pink. And now with Matte Varnish, Liquitex Transparent Burnt Sienna, and ULTHUAN Gray, we mix them together and to create this nice hair wash thing to apply, and it works good. And now with Cadian Flesh Tone, diluted with Lamian Medium, and then re-thickened with some matte varnish, I apply it to his face. And I have to apply it twice because the undercoat is very strong. When I apply it a second time, the undercoat is still visible, but it's not as strong, and so it works as a good highlight. And now, with Vallejo Liquid Copper, Liquid Old Gold, and Liquid Gold, we will be painting the armor. Now, this is a special alcohol-based paint. The reason why the old gold is in a Lamian Medium bottle is because its previous bottle got like glued stuck. I have no idea how, and basically I had to use a saw to cut out the top, and I just poured the rest into the Lamian Medium. You just have to mix it though. And so basically for the custodian armor, I applied this paint all over the armor with copper. Then I covered 90 to 95, actually 95% of the armor with the Liquid Gold Old Gold, which is a sort of a darker, deeper gold color. And then with Vallejo Gold color, I covered pretty much 80 to 90% of the entire armor with it. The gold color is a much smoother, lighter color, and so basically I was building up layers. The undercoating really didn't matter with this, because this stuff is so strong, it's not going to show through after these 3 coats. It'll show through with the first coat if you do it thin and right, which is a little difficult to do because you dilute it with isopropyl alcohol, so it's a little difficult to get it right, but you can get it right eventually with some practice. One thing to note is that these paints are sticky for a while afterwards, so after I applied the copper, I have to wait a bit, and then I apply the old gold, then I wait a bit, and then I apply the regular gold because I can't hold it. And now with Vallejo Liquid Silver. This silver, unfortunately, half of the bottle fell out, and a lot of the, I don't know what it's called, but like the medium that's mixed into it also dried out, so this paint is very difficult to work with for me. I have to buy a new one, but it still technically works. I just have to use it in 5 seconds, otherwise it dries. And basically I just use this to highlight the most prominent edges, edges of gold armor plates, medallions, stuff like that, here and there. I use it very sparingly. And then the final result of using these specialized metallics is a beautiful gold color that I will not be varnishing. It's pretty stuck on there, but yeah, it looks really nice. And with THONDIA Brown, we're just going to do a simple basic leather. So there's a bunch of straps on his. He has a leather belt, his gloves have straps, stuff like that. We're just going to use this as the color, just a throwback color. Alright, with Cantor Blue, Temple Guard Blue, Baharoth Blue, and Lamian Medium, we're going to paint 2 separate things, but they use the same colors, so might as well do them at the same time. The gems and the swords. So all the gems scattered throughout their body, and there's a lot, and the swords are going to start off with a base layer of Cantor Blue. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a Temple Guard Blue, dilute it a bit with Lamian Medium so it it applies smooth. Basically, so for the gems, we're going to cover 2/3 of them, the upper 2/3 with the Temple Guard Blue. And as for the swords, we're going to apply this along the edges, which takes a bit of time to get the lines right. There are some times when I screwed up the lines along the edges of the blade and the inner edges, so I just went back with Cantor Blue and refilled the middle. And once that was done, I then just painted with a very fine brush, just like little curve lines, zigzag lines along the upper half of the blade to look like lightning, and then I painted a zigzag line through them, and it looked fine. And then I went off to Baharoth Blue, diluted with Lamian Medium, and I applied it to the top third of every gem, as best as I could. And then I applied it in small amounts, so for the blade, the top third, the edge of the blade, the last third, the edge of the blade will have Baharoth Blue in the point, as well as I will fill in random sections of the Temple Guard Blue, the lightning there, to make it appear brighter. And that's pretty much what I do. It takes a while. Because I chose 2 blades, it takes a while. And then with Citadel Air ULTHUAN Grey, the only good version of this color, don't buy the regular one, just go for Air. I use it, slightly watered down with water, and I just use it to apply tiny dots on the most raised areas of the gems, and a few tiny dots on the lightning of the swords. Alright, time for some oils, because I like the effects that they do. They make the model have a softer appearance. So with burnt umber, burnt sienna, black, and magenta, and mineral spirits to dilute them, we're gonna do washes. So first with the burnt umber look, or burnt sienna, light sienna, whichever one, the light brown one, we're gonna dilute it a bit and we're gonna apply it to the hair and to the face. And so this is a back and forth process of adding, subtracting by wiping out with a sponge, then re-adding into the most important areas, or we can take our brush and mix with just pure mineral spirits and just like flick it onto the edges of the flesh to remove the wash, and so it's more of a back and forth of adding, subtracting, using the brush with mineral spirits or a sponge, and rapidly drying it with a hair dryer so the stuff stays, so I can pick at it with a brush or a sponge. And it's a back and forth thing. So basically I want to get the eyes filled in, the nose, and the areas around it to add some more color. Then with burnt umber, a thick wash, we're going to apply it and fill in the marble base. We're also going to apply this onto the leather gloves and the leather boots. Yeah. And then with black, we're going to apply this to the black parts of his pants and his boots. And after they dry, I always use the sponge lightly on them, just to remove any excess in case stuff pooled too much. Or just use my brush with some mineral spirits. I don't show the sponging because it's, well, I guess a bit tedious, but kind of silly. I don't know. This video is going on long enough, so this is basically a back and forth process. And then finally magenta. This one was a legitimate mistake. My cape was fine. I added this to add some color. I should have only done it to the front skirt. I basically added a light thin layer, and then I removed it with sponges and stuff after the fact. This was not needed for the cape. The cape was very fine. This kind of actually brought the cape down, especially the gold on the back, which was also from the liquid gold. I never mentioned that. And then I did a full assembly of the model. I then took iron hand steel and I just painted the bottom of his feet and the rim around his feet because it's metal. I don't show it here, but eventually I think it's too plain, and so I go back with Nuln Oil and do washes of Nuln Oil, then iron hand steel to highlight, and do that a few times just to build up some layers in depth. You'll see it in the final pictures. I then use super glue and secure him to the base with it. I then take my drill and then I drill a hole through the bottom and through his foot, the thick part of the foot. And when no more plastic is coming out onto the blade, I then stick a paper clip in there filled with super glue, and then I put super glue on top and let it dry. And now with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish and Liquitex Gloss Varnish, we're going to varnish very specific things. So with the AK Interactive Ultra Matte, we're going to do it on the cape, and we're going to do it on the face and head. And that's pretty much it. Well, also his gloves and his boots and pants. And then, oh yeah, and his skirt. And then with the gloss varnish, we're only going to apply this to his swords and his gems. We water it down a little bit so it flows better. And now with one change I'm going to do is I'm going to take Corvus Black and I'm going to line my base with it because it matches the marble of the base better than the Mornfang Brown I normally do. And done. Well, that was an interesting project trying to push myself. The power weapons were tedious, but they were not that difficult to do. I mean, I had a good brush, and the Lamian medium really helped with the coloring. It's not as good as the box art, but it's close. The Vallejo Liquid Golds, they did their job. They did wonderful. It looks great. Although the pictures, still image pictures don't look as well, but a video movement of the model looks incredible. In real life, when you move it, it looks wonderful. Alright, so I could not paint his eyes because I kept looking into his eye sockets and I could not see any spot for any eyeballs. It's like he's intentionally squinting. I could not find them to paint, and so I mean, you can see his eyebrows, his facial features are distinct, there's shadow and depth in there, so even without the eyes, the face is actually pretty good. And his hair is nice and flowing, and you can see some individual strands, except for on the top of his head. And, well, so the base is a little bit of a bust, just because the marbling effect wasn't as spaced out. It's not a 7. A lot of things didn't pan out. The leather and the boots, they didn't seem to work out as well as I thought they would. So I'm probably going to have to say this is probably just just an 8, just barely an 8. Some things went well. The face went pretty well. The weapons did very well. The cape, finally, not being attached to the body, was able to airbrush it without ruining the rest of the undercoating or stuff like that. Yeah, this... It was a... Yeah, I was practicing trying out new stuff, but Blade Champion is done. Intentionally made it harder, but yeah, he looks good. He looks great in armor. He shines a lot. His cape is nice. The highlights are good. Yeah, this looks good. Basic 8 out of 10. Alright then, so more to come. Like the video if you like the video, share it if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, dislike it if you dislike it, or nitpick something, whatever. And I'll see you soon. Bye.